Good evening, Grinders. Welcome to the NFL Pre-Lock Show here at RotoGrinders. I'm Jordan Cooper, a.k.a. Blender Ed, Blender HD. If you want to follow me on Twitter, joined by Chief Justice 06, Will Priester. We're back. It's showdown time. Me and you, Will.
Yes.
I'm not doing as many showdown shows this year, which, thank God. Sometimes it's a pain in the ass to do lineups and do the show, and every Monday, every Thursday. So maybe some people may not mind that they're not going to see me as often, but you can't start Monday Night Football without me and you. As always, first reminder, Will, 8:15 lock. It's 8:15, not 8:20. I gotta keep that joke from last year going.
Well, listen, it almost happened again this year. The very first show with cards, I'm sitting there and I'm like, well, wait a minute. Lineup's about to lock, and I needed to just get off. And I did have a dummy lineup in this time, Blender. I did not have a blank slate, but I wanted to do something a little bit different. And I said, oh my gosh, let me hurry up and save this. And I got it in time, but that was about to be a massive kickoff to the start of the season. And in fact, I may just make that. I might just do that every season now. Just forget to put in my lineups, and that way I can crush the rest of the year.
Just automatically assume it's 8:15, no matter what.
Yeah. Correct.
Well, if you're in the chat, YouTube people, you know how much I like the thummy thumbs. Hit that thumbs up button, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. We got tons of NFL content on the channel throughout the entire week. I'm obviously on in the mornings, 11 a.m. Eastern, Monday through Friday, talking you through a lot of NFL stuff, DFS strategy, answering your questions as I normally do. And then we got MLB stuff still going on, NFL, MMA, the college football. We got all the NFL stuff, the ownership reports, all the free shows, and of course, get premium. That'll always help, right? There's the show schedule on the screen. A lot of stuff going on. But if you get RotoGrinders Premium, get the NFL package if you just want to play NFL, which includes all the showdowns, includes the main slate, afternoon slate, Monday through Thursday, Thursday through Monday, Sunday through Wednesday, whatever it is. You get all the projections. You get lineup HQ. You get all of the premium articles. There's so much stuff. So click on that link in the description and get $10 off your first month of Combo Premium, or get the yearly NFL package. All the information to help you build better lineups, more profitable lineups in the long term. I use these tools. I used lineup HQ. I got Will. I don't know if you saw, but I released my advanced course, Theory of DFS for Advanced Players, and alongside James McCool. James McCool may be the person that knows Excel the most of anyone I've ever met. He's in there like every day. Look how sneaky I am. I tried to do a lot of my efficiency stuff in Excel myself. So like predicting duplicates for showdown, trimming lineups, seeing correlations, all that type of stuff. It's such a pain in the ass. The import projections, make sure the names are. Luis Garcia in baseball just blows up every Excel spreadsheet that I use. I would have to spend a half an hour every slate just to correct all of my mistakes. And I didn't expect that, and I didn't expect this. So what I did is that all the stuff that does things for me more efficiently, I just had James build, and I didn't have to pay him to do it because we just included all of those tools in the Theory of DFS for Advanced Players. So you get to download all of those Excel tools that James updates like every week. But it's a little new feature here, fix a bug there. And we have all these tutorials to go through on how to use these tools more efficiently. But it's not a replacement for Lineup HQ. You still need a lineup builder. You still need projections. You still need ownership, floor, ceiling stuff. So to me, it's a perfect tandem. I built before this show. I went through, Will. I built 900 lineups in Lineup HQ. Ooh. Okay? So, of course, you could max out at 300, but I did multiple builds with multiple captains, with all my build rules and everything. And I'm just like, well, let's take a look at this construction and that construction and this construction. And instead of trying to build it all in one, because I'm only playing 50 lineups tonight. So I want to build the best 50 I can that aren't as duped as others. So I just went through and I built basically 9 different captains, and I built 900 lineups, and then I just exported them all out into my Excel tools. And in the span, it took me, I think, somewhere between 7 and 9 minutes to trim those all down, get rid of the most duplicated lineups, kind of like make sure I don't have too much of this and too much of that. And I got down to my 50 lineups that I imported into DraftKings in about 7 to 9 minutes. Normally, I would never even conceive of playing this many lineups on a slate where I'm hosting a show, because it would take me maybe an hour to do, and I may not even do it that accurately. 7 to 9 minutes, piece of cake. It doesn't mean I'm going to have winning lineups, but my lineups will definitely not be as duplicated. As I'm looking at my portfolio correlation thing that I have, a tool here with my 50 lineups. I'm going to be quite different today.
Well, what else is new?
What else is new? So how's your NFL season? We got plenty of time. We still got 40 minutes or so. Have you changed any of your process for Showdown this year, heading into Thursday night football? We had one slate.
No. I mean, listen, man. You know how this Showdown works. Get as different as you can, in as many spots as you can, instead of being. And sometimes you might have to eat some chalk, right? Like, when Lamar Jackson's on the slate facing, I don't know who the worst team in football is going to be this year, but let's just call it the worst team in football. And you look, and Lamar Jackson has poor weapons. The other team has, you need to just lock in Lamar Jackson, right? Like, don't be crazy, but you need to be crazy enough in some other spots. Like last night, Blender, on the Showdown slate, I was legitimately considering playing all 3 running backs in the game. Like all 3. Because with the situation, with Dallas being down receivers, you knew Pollard was probably going to be involved in the passing game to compensate for that. Zeke was still going to get his touches. And then on the other side, we already knew that playoff Lenny was going to be in full effect. He's the lead dog. And so, I mean, I really, really, really got excited about 3 running back lineups. Well, here's the other reason. Who wants to play 3 running back lineups Showdown? Nobody. And that's how you get different. I love Mike Evans yesterday. I mean, man, I don't know why I didn't just take this whole thing down, but the process is still there. We're going to keep getting different and making some calls. And there you have it. One of these days, Blender, me and you might actually share a Showdown slate. And
maybe we can. I don't want to. Don't dupe me, bro. Don't dupe me.
Here's what I'm saying. I'm saying maybe we dupe each other and it's just us.
Okay, and, I'll settle on that, Will. Let's split the 250,000. That's perfectly fine. I think it's 250 tonight, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. We dupe each other. I mean, let's do it on a Millie slate though. And they'll be like,
no, I want the solo Millie. I'll solo Millie, and then you can split the 250.
Well,
get a little greedy.
Okay, so let's do
those 3 running back lineups to get into tonight's slate. I may have a couple of those.
Blender, that's where I was going. I may have some 3 running back lineups. I will get into it, but yet again, I feel like I might be back on that train.
Okay, let's first update anyone with the inactives. Outside of what? Kenneth Walker. Kenneth Walker's inactive, and Virgil, the 5th wide receiver, for what? Seattle, I believe. I don't know. He's inactive. I believe. What team? It doesn't really matter. What team is Virgil on? Whatever. I don't even think it matters. So we got Virgil as inactive, so he's like a punt with no ownership. And then Kenneth Walker is not active either. So you have to, talking about the running backs, because obviously we could lead it off with like Russell Wilson. Obviously, revenge game, right? It's the first game of the season going to Seattle to his old team. But the running backs, there's been a lot of, we have the Javonte Williams, Melvin Gordon situation. Would it, the notion heading into the season, but we said this last year, and you'll see where I'm going, is that eventually Javonte Williams is going to be like the guy that's going to get 70, 80% of the work and phasing out Melvin Gordon. But do you think I'm looking at my portfolio? Let me just say that I'm going to be over the field on Gordon and under the field on Williams, only because if Russell Wilson is going to be owned, he's going to be the most owned player on the slate. The most negatively correlated player to Wilson would be the running game. And if people are going to play Javonte Williams over Melvin Gordon, like we have the ownership here in the flex, Javonte Williams 49%, Melvin Gordon 20%, especially someone that's, gets goal line touches. Maybe it's more of a 50-50, and maybe Melvin Gordon gets those inside the 10 carries. I mean, Melvin Gordon, eight carries, 30 yards, 2 touchdowns for 7,400, wipes out some value for Russell Wilson, wipes out some value for Javonte Williams, and that's going to be a lot of lineups in this contest. Are you? I'm not a big fan of rostering Melvin Gordon, but on the sake of getting different on this slate, I'm willing to take more of a shot on him.
Yeah, listen, I like Melvin Gordon tonight. I still think so. Based on how they have this slate set up, Blender, right? I think the field expects Javonte Williams to be 70-30. You get what I'm saying? Like Javonte's 10-2, Gordon is at 7-4. And then just generally speaking, I think, we feel like, okay, Gordon's being phased out, but here's the deal. I don't see where Gordon is just completely out of this offense. I just don't believe that. Like not with Russell Wilson being there. And I'm not saying that, he's going to be the lead back. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying this could still be closer to 55-45. That's what I'm saying. Like, I don't care what the coaches say. Melvin Gordon still makes good money. And when you're paying players money, Blender, I'm still inclined to believe that the front office is saying, hey, we're paying this guy a lot of money. We don't want him to sit on the bench for the whole game. And I know we said, oh, Melvin Gordon's awful. Melvin Gordon's won me a lot of money in GPPs. I have no problem playing Melvin Gordon. And Blender, Blender's been in the prop shop. Maybe he'll come back a little bit now that his book's finished. His audio course. I don't want to disrespect the man's material. Audio course. Melvin Gordon is, I think he's he's a really good player tonight. I'll put it to you like that. I like a lot of Gordon props. I like Gordon here in this game. You talked about it. All it takes is for him to rush in 1 touchdown, and he's eating into Javonte Williams' value already. So I'm with you on Gordon,
as well as Wilson's, though. Will
absolutely, absolutely
passing touchdown taken away. So like a lot of these lineups in tonight's contest is going to feature Russell Wilson plus one of the Judy or Sutton. I mean, I think there will be a lot of Broncos heavy lineups. 4-2s, stuff like that. They may use like McManus in the lineup. They may use like Albert O at tight end at 5,000. Of course, we have Noah Fant revenge game on the other side.
Yeah.
It's weird for me to say, but to get different, I have more lineups that have more Seahawks in them than Broncos for 2 reasons. Okay? Well, follow me along for the 2 reasons. One is for a football reason, and one is for a game theory reason. Game theory reason is I think more Broncos are going to be played. I mean, the Broncos are a 6.5 point favorite, right? On the road, right? And it's expected. Russell Wilson, I mean, Geno Smith versus Russell Wilson is like, that's kind of a mismatch there. So because the fact that the more of the field is going to be playing more Broncos, I want to be playing more Seahawks. And then from a football reason, if we take a look at how these two teams operate, right? Of course, Geno Smith, I mean, he's been on the Seahawks. It's not like we haven't seen Geno Smith on the Seahawks. The Broncos have too many, they have too many weapons, but that's bad for DFS. So, like, I take a look at the Broncos and their pricing, and I go, okay, Russell Wilson, 11.8. His value to hit a ceiling at 11.8, that's like 3 or 4 passing touchdowns. Well, what if Javonte Williams gets a touchdown? But he's 10-2. So 1 touchdown and 50 yards by Javonte Williams isn't good enough for 10-2, and neither it is for Melvin Gordon. If he gets a touchdown and 20 yards, whatever. But then you still have to feed Sutton at 9.4, Judy at 8.2, Albert O. You got KJ Hamler at 4,400. Like, the ball could be, I mean, the Broncos could really spread this ball around, and Russell Wilson has no problem spreading the ball around. I mean, he's the type of quarterback that he'll find the open guy. He's always known in Seattle to find, that 3rd or 4th receiver, and it would always frustrate
Freddie
us.
Swain.
Right.
Catch the touchdown.
Straight up in DFS because he'd only throw 25 times, and then we have him paired with Metcalf or Lockett, and every once in a while, one of them will go off, but you'll always get this vulture touchdown here and there. And in comparison to the Seattle offense, and the Seattle offense to me looks like it's like Metcalf, Lockett, and Penny, and like then it's just a bunch of subsidiary players.
And Noah Fant will catch 3 or 4 passes.
Right.
And that's it.
But I think if the Seahawks can stay in this game, that the DFS production will be more condensed for the Seahawks than there will be for the Broncos. Now, obviously, the Broncos win 31-7. It doesn't matter how condensed. Look at the Cowboys yesterday. I played a ton of Cowboys. Oh, okay. Let me get everything for Noah Brown. No, they were horrible, right? Everything was condensed, but you only got a total of 20 points. So what does it matter? So I'm banking on the Seahawks being much more competitive, maybe even winning this game, and then being able, at their pricing, 8,400 for Metcalf, 7,000 for Lockett, 7,800 for Penny, right? You got the cheap, if you want to mix in Homer or DJ Dallas, or you want to throw in a YOLO for Will Disley touchdown, or D. Eskridge at 1,000. It just seems like it almost feels like there are twice as many Broncos I could roster than Seahawks. And because of that, I have lineups that are 4-2 for the Seahawks. I have lineups that are 5-1. I have lineups that it's 5 Seahawks and Russell Wilson, or 5 Seahawks and Javonte Williams. And not because the Broncos aren't going to do well. It's just that everyone may have 10 points, but no one has 20, except for one of the players. And the Seahawks maybe are more likely to have 3 or 4 players that have 18 points, and then that's the roster construction that wins.
I get it, man. And here's what I'll say too, Blender. The reason why I love the fact that we do this show is I think we try to give out good perspective and try to help people win. But I also think, we have different perspectives, but we think the same. I hope that makes sense. I hope people understand what I'm saying, because I think we've talked about this on the show a lot, where we might have we're identical in our thinking, but we're just approaching the slate differently, maybe. Hopefully that makes sense. I may not be making sense. So, folks, if I'm making sense, we think
strategically similarly, but the fact that just because we think strategically, like I understand, and I preach this on all my shows, and it frustrates a lot of people, that there may be 20 positive EV strategic directions to go on a slate, and maybe out of the 20, you play a little bit of this and a little bit of that and a little bit of this. And some people are like, I think the edge is right here in these 3 ways, and I'm just going to go hardcore on those 3 ways. And if it doesn't come in, oh, well, then there's another slate. And I think you fit more in that mold of I'm playing 5 lineups. I got my 1 plus EV strategy macro-wise. I'm hammering it 5 different ways. And if it comes in, great. I got 5 shots to win. And I'm a little bit more diverse in I could play a lineup with a Russell Wilson captain, but I could also play a lineup with this type of captain. As long as they're plus EV individually, I'm just trying to give out like, here's an approach that's plus EV. Here's another approach. And a lot of times on these shows, you're like, I have a conviction. I agree with that conviction. It's just that, yeah, I'm not going to build all 50 of my lineups like that. And you have no problem. Just like when you lock button people in, like I except in basketball is the only sport with the, the 3K guy that's going to has a projection of.
Of course. Yeah. Absolutely.
I'll lock those guys in. But in all these other things, like, dude, one of my highest exposed players on the cheap end is Eric Saubert, the second tight end for the Broncos. Do I like? I mean, he could be that touch, the goal line touchdown. But in comparison to DJ Dallas, who's going to be probably much more owned than him, or D. Eskridge or Travis Homer, it's like the ownership isn't worth the projection. But the problem is that I could have built 50 lineups with Eric Saubert in it. Do I really? Yeah. Do I really want to? If you had a hard-earned $750 worth of entries, or whatever, $750 worth of entries, are you that comfortable saying, okay, here's my mortgage payment? If Eric Saubert gets a 0, like, I may not cash a single entry. I mean, of course he's cheap. I could probably cash even with a 0 in Saubert.
Yeah.
I'm not going to come on this show and say I'm lock buttoning him. I'm going to eliminate some of those Eric Saubert lineups, or some of those. Right. I'm taking a look at some of my lineups right here. Like, I have a lot of Seahawks defense. Like, is that something that I wanted? Like a Seahawks defense, Eric Saubert lineup. Maybe I don't.
If that comes through, you're winning. You don't have to worry about splitting with anybody. You've won.
Right, of course. Well, that's what I'm aiming for. But you, on the other hand, you may have a take, and you may go, you can make Cortland Sutton lineups. You can make Jerry Jeudy lineups that are both plus EV. And you say, I'm just going to make 100% Jerry Jeudy lineups and X out Sutton completely. And I would agree with all the lineups that you make. Like, for those lineups, you're making great lineups.
Exactly.
But I'm not willing to just go, well, if Cortland Sutton has a good game, then I'm screwed type of. I'll build a bit of a both.
Yeah. You'll have a bond ladder, and I'll just completely go and do so. But yeah, but that's so. But philosophically, we think exactly the same. It's like, if I'm going to win, I want to win. I want to completely hammer what I feel like is the top play, and I want to get rid of anybody that I think is just not going to do it, especially when they're 4, 5, 6K. Like, you start getting into that range, and I get to, because it's like the same in reverse. For as much as I want to hammer the good play and have, let's say, 100% exposure in certain spots, not every slate, but a lot of slates, I want to get rid of that one 8K guy that gets like 2 fantasy points.
Is that guy Noah Fant today?
It probably should be. I'm not ballsy enough to get rid of Noah Fant today, for what it's worth.
Okay. So on your end of the spectrum, in your lineups, I don't know how many you're building. Who are your building plus EV lineups with that, like, kind of flag plant? Who would be your most exposed and your least exposed? Then what types of lineups are you building? Are you building more Broncos heavy lineups or Seahawks heavy lineups? Like,
so
what are you doing?
Ironically, my most exposed would be Jerry Jeudy.
Okay.
That would be my most exposed. My least exposed in terms of where I think everybody else is going to end up is probably Javonte Williams, for what it's worth.
Okay, I mean that you're more in line with I'm about equal with Jeudy and Sutton, and I'm significantly under on Javonte Williams. I'm way under on Russell Wilson in the captain. I'm way over Geno Smith in the captain, and
that makes sense. Yeah, we know how each other thinks. I could have almost told someone you were going to have more exposure to Geno than Russ and the captain. Like, they would have said, "What's Blender going to do tonight?" And guess what? I'll on my blender cap, and I'll speak for you on this one. Geno is going to run some. He's somewhat of a dual threat now, maybe not as much as he was. And and he's pretty much just as cheap or equally cheap as all the skill position players, and he's got half the ownership of Russell Wilson, and he's the quarterback.
He's got almost half the ownership of Javonte Williams.
Yeah, and he's the quarterback. Well, the quarterback is like the pitcher, right? They're absolutely going to have the ball and control some form, some outcome of the game. And so I'm sure you said, well, what if Geno throws for 3 touchdowns? Then I'm probably in a position to win. Obviously, I know, you're going to run the sim tool as well. Like that's also part of our process. But when I saw this slate and I saw 8.6K Geno Smith, obviously, I said that's the blender play extraordinaire for sure. Like hands down.
And I'm looking at our sim tool, which is the replacement of Slate IQ. It's our Showdown sim tool, Seahawks versus Broncos. This is for premium members. So click on that link in the description, get $10 off your first month. So Jamino runs like play-by-play simulations of all these games and gives you kind of all the stats of like the top 0.1% of lineups, kind of like what do they look like when you run the sims. So like we see here, like negative leverage, heavy positive leverage on Geno Smith, heavy negative leverage on Javonte Williams, negative leverage on Cortland Sutton, right? We have about negative leverage on Penny, a little bit more on Gordon, a little bit more on Hamler, more on DJ Dallas, less on the Broncos defense, more on the Seahawks, less on Homer, right? I'm looking through all this, and it's like my lineups are kind of matching to this. Now, it also shows these constructions like 3-3 and 4-2 are the bulk of the optimal constructions, but this is based on which team wins and which team loses. Now, if you think that the Broncos are going to win 4-2, 3-3, that's in. But if the Seahawks win, then it's going to be a 4-2 lineup that leans more towards, like 5-1. Like a lot of times we don't see 5-1s being 12 percentage, like positive, what the optimal rate is. A lot of times we see this in the 5 to 7% range. Mm-hmm. So these 5-1 lineups, like just feel free to try to build a 5-1 Broncos lineup. I don't know how the hell you do it. Like, unless it's Hamler, it's McMahon. Unless it really gets spread out and a lot of these.
I love the kickers. You know this.
The Broncos defense and the kicker. It's hard for me to see a 5-1 Broncos lineup without it being just like a 37-0 type of game. So I'm leaning more towards that. This may represent a Seahawks win. Like just because the Broncos are favored doesn't mean that. I think there's much more value on the Seattle side of the ball in relation to what the ownership is. And I know someone mentioned in the chat. Feel free to post your questions. We'll go through some of them.
Well, Blender, I absolutely don't need the Seahawks to win tonight because I said I don't. I'm in a survivor pool, and I took Denver right out of the gate. They're a better team than this Seattle team. They better win for the old Chief tonight so I can move on to greener pastures. We're in the same boat. I'm absolutely expecting Denver to smack the Seahawks tonight for what it's worth.
So are you building more 4-2, 5-1 Broncos lineups?
I am.
Who are you fitting into these 5-1 lineups?
Okay, so you probably know how
we played it. Will we play this game? We play that you tell me and I guess, right?
Yeah. You know how I build lineups. You already know I don't have. I will say this. I don't have Russ at captain.
Right.
I'm not generally. I'm going
to guess you have Judy at captain. I'm going to guess Judy at captain. Okay.
Absolutely.
Let's go through this. Okay, Judy at captain. Now you're going to have Russell Wilson in the flex because that makes sense. Okay. I'm going to guess, 64.75 per player. I'm going to guess Melvin Gordon in the flex.
I do have Melvin Gordon. Yes.
Okay, Melvin Gordon. Okay, 61.67. You're one player from, maybe you just have Geno Smith from the Seahawks. No?
Maybe. I've got one spot left. So let's go with 5 Broncos.
Okay. I'm gonna say it's the Broncos defense, or I'm gonna say it's Albert O and KJ Hamler.
No, Alberto and McManus.
And McMahon. Okay, well, close. Okay,
so
this is perfectly reasonable.
Exactly. And now I can put and I tell everybody this, I think, once a year, twice a year. So if I take that shell, then I'm literally going to just take all the Seahawks and run them through that build. So I'm going to play Geno in 1, take him out. I'll play Penny in 1, take him out. I'll play Metcalf in 1. Right. And I'll even go down to Eskridge as an example. And I know that sounds crazy, but what if Eskridge is the one Bronco that catches a 60-yard touchdown and nobody else does anything? Well, then Eskridge is the highest scoring Bronco on the slate. Seahawk on the slate. And I literally have him with like $8,000 left. As an example. Right. And then I'll take another shell. So I'll say, okay, I'll get rid of, maybe McManus, and I'll plug in, KJ Hamler as an example. And then I'll run through the same shit. And that's how I do it. I'm saying for the hand build portion. Because sometimes I tell everybody for NFL, sometimes I do want to hand build when I have this. And I might not hand build all. I might hand build 30 lineups. But I want these 30 to be what I want them to be. And I don't want to leave it to chance. Even though I can set a lot of parameters in lineup HQ that could possibly spit it out, I'm not going to leave it to chance. I'm going to build these 30. And then I'll go to lineup HQ and run 120 for the rest of the contest if I'm going to max.
Okay, so you're playing 150 tonight.
No, not tonight. But I'm saying generally speaking, this is my main lineup, and then I'll cycle through. I guess I just gave everybody what I was doing, but right. I am going to have a couple other different ones. But that's like my core.
I'm going to show you what my core kind of lineup, what they look like. I'm going to go here and just look at my types of lineup. I have a lot of lineups, like I'm playing 50, that have Geno Smith, right, at captain. But I play Metcalf and Lockett.
Of course.
Right. Play Russell Wilson. Play Melvin Gordon. Let's see. What do we have?
Are we going to get our secret tight end here?
Right. Maybe. Yeah, you're right. It may be like an Eskridge or like something more like this. Maybe without Gordon. Maybe in this Gordon spot, I got 8,900. So I got like Judy in there, right? Judy in there, yeah. Gordon in there, Albert O in there, like something like this. Geno Smith with 3, or maybe I don't have Eskridge in here, and maybe I don't have Wilson in there. Maybe I have Penny instead, right? And then I have like Cortland Sutton, and then 4,500, and maybe KJ Hamler, like a 4-2 lineup like this.
Yeah.
Like something that looks like that. Like these are what my lineups. I have a lot of Metcalf and Lockett. Like
here's the thing,
look at my exposures. I could even show you. Let me stop the screen and share my Excel document. Okay, we could kind of see it on the screen here. This is my portfolio correlation matrix tool, which is part of Theory of DFS. You'll get it. If you get my advanced course, you'll get this. So I just loaded my portfolio into this just to see what players are like showing up in lineups together with one another, right? So you can see like the R values. I know it's small on the screen, how many lineups together they're in. And then you see in this middle, you get this called the variance factor section of like what players are the most correlated to the rest of my portfolio. Number 1, Geno Smith. Number 2, Russell Wilson. Number 3, Lockett. Number 4, Metcalf. Number 5, Gordon. And then I have Saubert and the Seahawks as my like cheapy, the most amount of exposure there. So like I got to these lineups not by like hand building, but by running, like I said in the beginning, 900 lineups, and then using my Excel tools to trim down. I could predict duplicates in Excel. Oh, this lineup's going to be duplicated 700 times. Well, I'm not going to play it. I don't care what it is. It doesn't matter to me. I don't care. So I get rid of a lot of those lineups and then go through and go, which ones are, how owned are they? How projected are they? What are their ceilings versus I'm playing more high ceiling lineups than floor lineups. And then I get to my 50 and then I put it through this portfolio correlation matrix just to make sure basically I put it in, Will, to make sure I didn't have 1,000,000% Eric Saubert. Because I saw he was coming up so much. Because he's based on our ownership, like 1-2% owned at $200, and he's only 1 point lower projected than that Disley or Dallas, and only 4 points lower than Eskridge or Homer. So it's like basically a touchdown. Can he catch a touchdown? And he's more likely in lineups where I'm spending most of my salary. So he's in lineups that I'm spending $49K plus and having a 2% owned second tight end. So he showed up a lot in lineups, but I like seeing it, just a general, this tool in Excel shows me a lot more about my portfolio than just like the exposure percentages, because it shows what players are more attached to other players. So you can see down here, like Javonte Williams is kind of like just not much of him, and he's kind of floating around, not really attached to players that are more correlated to him.
Yeah,
a little bit. Look, the thing is, Will, you do the same exact thing. Just exactly. I do it in like I'm more like a mad scientist, and you do it much more intuitively. We end up getting to the same place pretty much.
Yeah, and that's why I always say, man, this little showdown pairing that we have, it works because, and that's the thing about DFS. Just because we don't build lineups the same for a slate, we all the top players and some of the not top players, we all think the same eventually. Like we get there a certain way, and it works, man.
And you're going for one side, like I decided beforehand. Like you made your flag play, and you're like, okay, I'm betting on the Broncos. I'm building a lot of Broncos, 4-2, 5-1 type of thing. And I said, I'm going the other. Like I can build your lineups and be like, okay, out of my 50, maybe I have 25 lineups like that. I'm taking on the risk, saying I think there's more of an edge of playing more of these Seahawks, and I'm decided to double down a bit more on that side. So if the Seahawks are competitive and score 21, 28 points, that my lineups benefit. But if it's a 38-7 game, 38-6 game on the Broncos, well, my lineups are pretty much dead, and then you have 30 chances at a ton of points. And if I would. That's perfectly fine. I just found, Will, that it was hard for me to build those lineups without getting too duplicated and then really having to make concessions on like the last spot or two. Yeah. And the ones that with the Seahawks are like, me, I care much more about not being duped. You don't mind being duped, 10 times and pocketing, $18,000, right?
Well, I don't. If it comes to that, right. which is why, as we were talking about earlier, when I've got kind of this little core build, I'm saying, wait a minute, let me run through every other player, because the one slip up that the field doesn't make, let's say, like I said, I've got a cheap guy, or I'm leaving 3, 4, 5,000 on the table. The one slip up they make could be and they'll look at the lineup blender and go, oh my God, that was so basic. Why did I think of that? Well, you just didn't cycle through the full breadth of the players that were available. That's it.
But is your take that Geno Smith is still a capable quarterback? That, like, if we saw Metcalf and Lockett at these prices in a showdown slate last year with Russell Wilson at quarterback?
Oh, Blender, I'd have the lock button on them both. You already know this. Right. Both of them.
So I'm betting more on that. I'm betting more on this. The Seahawks offense isn't as watered down with Geno Smith behind, especially they got a whole training camp. When we've seen Geno Smith in this offense, it's been when he's a backup for Russell Wilson, and they're not planning on building the playbook around Geno Smith, right? Now they built the playbook around him. So like, I'm going, especially since the field is going to just go, let's take a look at the Geno Smith games from last year or the year before. Wow, yeah, this offense may not be good. It's like, especially in the beginning of the season, week 1, I said it on my podcast, the Theory of DFS podcast. We don't know crap, right? I use the S word, but maybe we do. Most likely the Broncos rout them. I mean, let's just be honest. right?
Yes.
Most likely the Broncos win by a touchdown or two. I get it. But if maybe not. Maybe Geno Smith and the Seahawks aren't that bad.
Well, we're going to find out. I think for me, and this is probably me. I think I incorporated a little bit of narrative street into my process today, Blender. Just a touch. And here are my thoughts. Of course, Russell Wilson isn't going to have immense pressure on him, so to speak, because it's not like he doesn't know the stadium, right? But he's a visitor now. And so I think he wants to stick it to these guys, and he does have weapons to get it done. And I feel like everybody felt like Pete Carroll handcuffed him for like half a season. Half the season they let him, air quotes, they let Russ cook. The other half of the season they were, trying to run Chris Carson around. And I think Russell Wilson wants to prove that, hey, I got paid this money, but I am an elite quarterback in this league. I think he lights it up tonight. I've actually got Russ pegged for a little over 300 yards and 3 touchdowns. Like, not like 350, but like 305, 308, and 3 touchdowns. And as a result, I've taken this approach in DFS and the passing and props. Like everybody, and props I think were a little bit too low anyway yesterday. But I've got Russ in terms of like fantasy points on Prize Picks or yards paired with Judy and Sutton. Like I think because if Russ is going to throw for 300, that's the approach I have to take. It's the same thing I was saying with like some of these other quarterbacks this week. If you're expecting a quarterback to throw for 300, then one receiver, unless you're Justin Jefferson, he isn't going to go for 300 yards. Like the yards have to go somewhere. So I think Sutton and Judy are going to have big games tonight. I think Russ has a big game. And as a result, I think there are going to be points galore for Denver. And then as a result of that, Blendon, I know we got to get out of here, and I'm running us over time, which is why I respect your lineup so much, because if the Seahawks are in catch-up mode and they happen to pull off the Detroit Lions from yesterday with the Eagles, then these Seahawks are going to start getting pretty much optimal everywhere because they're so cheap.
Well,
even if Denver punches them in the mouth, if they score 28 points, wow, it's going to get scary if they have condensed production. I hope they, for my sake, I hope they don't, Blender. I'm so heavy on the Broncos, but if they do, then looks like you'll be winning $1 million tonight.
Right, because Donnie Watson says the problem is it's Pete Carroll, not Geno Smith. But as you said, what happens if they go down 2 touchdowns in the first quarter? Right, I mean, yeah, I'm betting on the fact that even if the Broncos win, the touchdowns and the production is spread out. Javonte Williams gets a rushing touchdown. Gordon gets a rushing touchdown. Albert O gets a passing touchdown. Like Russell Wilson throws for 220 and 3 touchdowns, but like none of the skill players, like it's all spread out. And then the Seahawks have to come back and they aren't running the ball as much, and they're so much cheaper and so much of our condensed offense that even in a game that the Broncos win, let's say 27-20, it still could be that a 4-2 Seahawks lineup is the optimal.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm with you 100%. 100%. Okay,
so remember, 8:15, we just locked.
Yeah, I know. Right, I had some fun. I had to have some fun with the chat. A guy reminded me, I said, "Oh no, I missed it," but I was just kidding. I was just kidding.
Well, I'll be on here whenever it's me and you on Monday Night Football. Make sure Devin, make sure to schedule us together. I think we're the perfect combo on these shows. Yeah, man, absolutely. And we get to feed off of each other too. Right, you're so much more excitable. Like I got it, do it. Me, I'm just like here's my spreadsheet. Oh, there you go, enter it in. Whatever. That's very important though. That's the secret sauce right there. Right, without importing your CSV into DraftKings, you can't win anything. Right. Yeah. Okay, right. So those thummy thumbs on your way out the door really helps us out. We got tons of content here, NFL content, Monday Night Football, Thursday Night Football, Sunday Night Football Showdown content. We got shows, 3 shows early Sunday morning for the main slates. We got shows throughout the course of the week previewing the following slates. We got the Saturday ownership report. We got the tournament takes podcast. We got everything on the podcast feed. All the stuff that comes out weekly. If you want to download in a podcast form, just go to iTunes, wherever you get your podcast, Spotify, wherever. Search for, the RotoGrinders Fantasy Football podcast. You'll get 10, 12 shows a week, it seems like. So we got Monday Night Football coming. First Monday Night Football. Let's hopefully it's a better game than last night.
Oh my gosh. Don't even talk about last night. It is what it is, man. Dallas looks, and I tell everybody, don't overreact to one game. In this case, I am overreacting. Dak's already out 6 to 8 weeks. Cowboys season is done. It's done right now.
Bengals defense 2,200 on the next play. It's 20. They're 2,200. So I think that's going to be a popular defense come Sunday. So for Will, Chief Justice 06, I'm Jordan Cooper, Blender HD. Follow us on Twitter. And I'll see you guys in the morning. Right, tune in early in the morning. Click that notification bell. When we go live on the DFS pregame show, 11 o'clock in the morning tomorrow. Maybe I'll go review. If the Seahawks pull this out, maybe I'll be reviewing my own lineup that won a whole ton of money. But most likely the Broncos win, and I'll be reviewing Will's lineups.
Please. I will say this: Gino already has 24 yards passing.
Okay, that's good. Oh, okay. I gotta go see. I gotta go check in with my Gino. So see you guys later. Hit that thumbs up button, and this has been the Monday Night Football pre-lock show on RotoGrinders.com.
Calm down. Sit.